Hello and welcome to the Send and Sleep webinar by Space Hertfordshire in partnership with the Sleep Charity. My name is Chris Russell and I will be delivering this webinar. The objectives of this webinar are to understand the importance of sleep and the impact that sleep deprivation has on parents, children and siblings, how Send affects sleep, learning how to keep a sleep diary and how to interpret the results, and bedtime routines and sleep-friendly bedrooms. Now, before we start, it's important to go through the impact of sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation can have a huge impact on a family, both on an individual level and as a family unit. These feelings are completely normal and typical for a lot of families. And do remember that sleep deprivation is also used as a form of torture. When we have a look at the impact of sleep deprivation on parents, this impacts on your patients. Patients for your children, patients for your partner, for professionals involved in your child's care. Sleep deprivation may then interfere with recovery time. You may feel like you don't have any downtime just to stop and process your day. In some instances, you may feel too tired to drive or operate machinery. Sleep deprivation can also contribute to low mood, feeling irritable, angry, or aggressive. You may experience a weakened immune system through lack of sleep. Can impact on your anxiety levels. This can lead to a vicious cycle because anxiety levels can then interfere with your sleep. You may feel a lack of confidence when it comes to bedtime. You may lose your confidence and feel like you can't parent your child when it comes to bedtime, or feel like you have little resilience when things do go wrong. And some parents may feel secretive, shameful, and embarrassed about bedtime. It's a topic you may not want to talk about, especially in the little free time that you have. Talking about bedtime when bedtime isn't going well may not be a topic that you want to bring up. Thinking about the impact on children. Sleep deprivation can affect your child's ability to learn and concentrate and function in their day-to-day life as well as at school. If your child is feeling irritable or angry, this may affect their friendships and their relationships. You may also see that your child is quite hyperactive as a result of sleep deprivation. As opposed to sluggish, they may be hyperactive. You may notice that your child's emotional resilience and the way they manage their own emotions is more difficult. They may appear to be more accident prone, dropping things, bumping into things. They may also go through a period of low mood or feeling irritable. And again, anxiety, it can affect children as well. The sleep deprivation doesn't just affect children and parents, it can also affect siblings. There's a chance it may impact on a sibling or parent relationship, because they may feel a bit left out or ignored, especially if the sibling sleep is okay. They may feel a bit resentful towards their brother or sister. If they're getting all the attention at bedtime, they have a lot more parental time at bedtime. They may feel resigned to it. They may just accept that that's how things are, feel quite resigned. But there's also the chance that your sibling may have a poor performance at school, feel a bit jealous, or they may feel a bit confused or a lack of understanding. Why do I have to go straight to bed, but my brother doesn't? You may see changes in behaviour, you may see the sibling be disengaged. Sleep deprivation also impacts on parents' ability to make changes. If we had to put any changes in place to improve the impact of sleep deprivation and improve the family's sleep, there needs to be a certain level of confidence and resilience in order to do so. It's also worth noting, before we go any further, that before any changes are made to a bedtime routine or sleep, parents do need to commit to a good 2 weeks of consistency before we start to see any changes. And there is often a period where things appear to get worse before they get better. Now, sleep cycles. This here is a hypnogram, which shows your different levels of sleep throughout a typical night. So this is a typical hypnogram showing what happens when you fall asleep. Now, there are two different types of sleep, or two main types of sleep, and we need both of these types. There is REM sleep which is rapid eye movement sleep, and there is non-REM sleep, made up of 3 stages: stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. So stage 1 is where you experience quite light sleep, you're just nodding off. Stage 2 is a deeper sleep, and stage 3, much deeper sleep. It's called slow wave sleep, or N3. This is where you find it quite difficult to be woken up, mainly to be shaken awake. Your alarm, you may sleep through your alarm in a stage 3. In a stage 2, or N2, or non-REM stage 2, if you wake up, you may feel a bit confused. It may take you a minute to realize where you are, what you're doing. And in stage 1 sleep, N1, you're quite easily awoken by slight changes. Someone turning the light off, you fall asleep on the sofa in front of a film and someone turns that off, that may wake you up. Now, in your REM sleep, your rapid eye movement sleep, this is when you process things. It's your processing time. You process what happened in the day, including what you learned. You organize your thoughts, you organize your emotions. When people say it's best to sleep on it, this is what they mean. It's your REM, your rapid eye movement sleep, is when you sleep on it. This is where you have a majority of your dreams and nightmares. You can have dreams in N1, 2, and 3 sleep, but it's less likely and often less intense. There's quite a lot of brain activity and brain development during your REM sleep. Your muscles may twitch, you have quite irregular breathing, and you do have brief fluctuations in your heart rate and your blood pressure. Now, throughout the night, your sleep occurs in cycles. You get the most deep sleep quite early on in the night. So if we have a look at this hypnogram, you'll notice that we go from awake into a level 1, level 2, and then level 3 sleep within that first hour, and stay there for a good 90 minutes before that cycle comes up to an end and we go into that light REM sleep. So sleep cycles are 60 to 90 minutes long. So you may notice every 60 to 90 minutes on this hypnogram, we're going from awake into a deeper level of sleep and back again. And this is a normal part of every night. What we might notice, however, is that parents are often just entering their deep sleep period, just as their children move into a lighter sleep. So looking at this, in about 3 hours in, our sleep cycles tend to go out of that level 3 sleep and more towards the level 2 sleep. So it's a lighter sleep from about 3 hours onwards. If a child is going to bed at 7 p.m. and parents are going to bed at 10 p.m., this could contribute to why turning the lights off, locking up for the night, getting yourself to bed may cause your child to stir. As the way their sleep cycles work, they may be entering a lighter stage of sleep throughout the night. Next, I want to have a look at autism, ADHD, and sleep. Firstly, thinking about circadian rhythms. So your circadian rhythm is your biological clock. Now, everyone has a circadian rhythm. This regulates your appetite. It regulates your body temperature when your hormones are released, including the ones that make you sleepy and alert. It's genetically programmed. So some people are morning people, some people are night owls. And environmental cues very much help. Things like light and dark, social cues where you socialize throughout the day, and your daily routines all contribute to your circadian rhythm. It's your body's natural biological clock. Melatonin is the Ozzy Osbourne of hormones. It's the hormone of darkness. It naturally occurs in the pineal gland in the brain, and it is controlled by your circadian rhythm or your circadian clock. So melatonin release tells you that you're sleepy and you should start to wind down and get ready for bed. So your melatonin levels rise at night and they fall at dawn. Melatonin can be prescribed as a medicine. Sometimes it's used for jet lag to help get people's circadian rhythm back into where it should be. For some shift workers who have to interrupt that circadian rhythm, depending on whether they're working nights or days. It may be used for some people with circadian rhythm disorders, in autistic people, children and adults with ADHD and delayed sleep phases. And it's also used for children with severe visual impairments who may not get the same environmental cues. There is no long-term data on the safety of melatonin. Some side effects include morning sleepiness, headaches, and very vivid dreams, and high doses can reduce your body temperature. Now, thinking about ADHD and autism in relation to sleep, circadian rhythms, and melatonin. Some studies suggest that 50% of children with ADHD have a sleep problem. Some research says it's higher than this, but what this looks like, it may be that your child has quite a lot of difficulty falling asleep, turning off their brain, maybe quite restless when they are asleep, difficulty waking in the morning, higher incidences of your restless leg syndrome, so moving around quite a lot, contributing to that restlessness. And ADHD affects sleep, and sleep affects ADHD. Things like bedtime resistance. Your child is very impulsive and hyperactive. Getting your child to wind down at the end of the day can be more difficult. It may be that they're quite resistant to having limits set, because impulsively they like being quite self-directed. If you then have inadequate sleep hygiene, an interrupted or irregular bedtime, your quality of sleep reduces. And with that quality of sleep, you then experience more sleep deprivation. What we then see is that sleep disruption or that sleep deprivation does affect ADHD and can cause you to be more hyperactive, more impulsive, and more inattentive. So there is a strong link between ADHD and quality of sleep. When we talk about autism, there is a disturbance in the sleep-wake cycle. So those sleep cycles we were talking about can often be disturbed. This may be due to abnormal melatonin regulation and production. So it may be that the body doesn't produce enough melatonin at the right time, or may not regulate it to absorb that melatonin at the right time. Food sensitivities or sensory sensitivities can also affect sleep. Things like lights. If your child is hypersensitive to light, they may need a particularly dark room to fall asleep. Similarly with noise, smells, and touch. If your child does have many sensory needs, that can make falling asleep more difficult. Fear and anxiety, lack of control, and difficulty to unwind are also quite common in some autistic children and their sleep. The lack of control of letting go and letting your body fall asleep. It's not something we consciously do. We don't decide to fall asleep. We put ourselves in a position where we are able to fall asleep, usually in bed with the light off, and we let our body do it. But it is your body taking control at that moment, and it can be quite scary for some children to let the body take control without you consciously doing so. And good sleep meets a social need. Your REM sleep is needed to process the day. Some autistic children may need more processing time and therefore need more REM sleep, which highlights the importance of sleep for neurodivergent children. Our next topic is day and night. So we've spoken about the circadian rhythm, which is when your body starts to produce that melatonin to tell you when it's time to start winding down, and it may be getting towards nighttime. But when we talk about neurodiversity, daytime and nighttime look different depending on what time of year it is. Some things that can help support day and night and help support your child's sleep are doing the same things at the same time each day and night. The more structure and routine there is, the more helpful that is to your circadian rhythm, producing melatonin at the right time to help you have enough melatonin to fall asleep. This includes waking your child up at the same time each morning. Bedtime routine isn't necessarily when your child falls asleep. It can also include when your child wakes up. If your child is waking up at the same time every morning, over time, they will start to produce melatonin at the same time every evening. And when we go to bed at the same time every evening, we have the same amount of sleep every night. We wake up at the same time, we produce that melatonin at the same time. If your child is waking up 2 hours later on a Sunday morning because they've had a lie-in, that means that they won't start producing melatonin until 2 hours later in the evening, which means it can take an extra 2 hours to fall asleep. And if they have to be up for school in the morning, they may be up earlier, they have less sleep, and that circadian rhythm is interrupted. Other things can be using music to give a sense of time. You may play one particular album or one particular genre or artist in the evenings to give a sense of when an evening is, as we can't just use daylight to indicate day and night time. Of course, in the winter in the UK, it can get dark from 4 p.m., sometimes towards 3:30 when it gets really dark. Yet in summer, it can be light up until 9, sometimes 10 p.m. Therefore, relying on sunlight alone for day and night, well, that changes every month. So there are other things that we can do, waking up and going to bed at the same time, using music at the same time. Do you have a song that you play first thing in the morning every morning to help your child wake up? Can we use scents, different scents, to wake your child up in the morning? Do we use pillow mists in the evening to help tell your body that it's nighttime? Whether it's light or dark outside, the pillow mist means it's nighttime and it's time to start producing that melatonin. You can change the way a bedroom looks. Now, many of us, our children use our bedrooms to play and do homework, study, as well as to sleep. But it might be that at a certain time every evening, we transform rooms from somewhere where you play and study into somewhere where you just sleep. This may be turning cabinets round that have toys in. It may be putting laptops away. It may be getting a blanket and covering toys in the corner. So the room looks different when it's time to sleep, and it looks different when it's time to play or study. You can tell your child when it's nighttime, reminding your child verbally that it is nighttime now. This helps reinforce everything that we are doing, whether it's sensory with the music or sounds, visual, the way the room looks. Audibly, we can tell your child. Another is to change their clothing. Is your child getting into pajamas at the same time every night? If they are, is your child getting out of their pajamas at the same time every morning? It can be tempting, especially on slow weekends, to leave your child in their onesie, in their pajamas until 9, 10, 11 a.m. lunchtime. But changing clothes into your daytime clothes and your nighttime clothes also helps to reinforce when it is daytime and when it is nighttime. We can read stories about day and night, go to your local library and find books about daytime and nighttime. There are different stories, different books to use for different ages, and can use a visual clue to show when it's time to get up. Is it a picture of a clock next to your child's bedside table that says what time you can get up? Some clocks, such as a grow clock, may change colour when it's time to wake up and when it's time to be in bed. There are lots of different visual clues that you can use to support daytime and nighttime. Next, I want to have a look at sleep diaries. In order to change your child's sleep, first you'll need to interpret it using a sleep diary. There are lots of different ways that you can keep a sleep diary. The most simple or straightforward is to use a pen and paper and write it down. Feel free to pause this webinar and have a look through some of the headings to help inform your own. We'll be having a look at this sleep diary in more detail and analysing it to help improve this child's sleep. So this sleep diary is for Jack Smith. This was done in 2010 for a child born in 2008. So he was 2 years old when this was done. On day one, we noticed that Jack Smith had a 20-minute daytime nap at 9 a.m. and a 2-hour nap from 3 till 5. His bedtime routine started at 7 p.m. and he was in his bed at 10 p.m. The parents stayed until he settled, and the child fell asleep at 11 p.m. He woke up in the night once at 1:30 for an hour, came into mum and dad's bed, and eventually woke up at 7 a.m., totaling 9 hours and 20 minutes of sleep. On day two, Jack also had a 9 a.m. nap, but this lasted for 1 hour. He had another 2-hour nap, but this was from 4 till 6 p.m. and went to bed an hour and a half later than the day before at 8:30 p.m. He was in bed an hour later at 11. Parents also stayed in the room until he settled. He fell asleep later, an hour later again at midnight, and woke up an hour later at 2:30 a.m. He came into mum and dad's bed, fell asleep, and woke up at 8:30 a.m. as opposed to 7, where he had 11 and a half hours sleep. On day 3, you'll notice a similar pattern. And day 4, day 5, day 6, and day 7. So what we notice is the total numbers of hours of sleep are differing from one day to another. They range from just over 9 hours to 14 hours. Jack is waking up some days at 7 a.m., some days at 10 a.m. Sometimes when he wakes up in the night, he's coming into parents' bed. What we don't know is whether he's going back to bed or not. It's not quite clear in the sleep diary. And they're going to sleep anywhere between 10:30 and midnight. So we have lots of questions about the sleep diary, and we're not going to judge anyone's sleep diary at all. But we have things that we can have a look at and see whether this works. So the first question we may ask is, are the naps appropriate? If your child is much older, they may not be napping, so that may not be something that you think about at all. But in Jack's case, would you say that the naps are appropriate? Should he be having 2 naps a day? Perhaps yes. But are they at the same time and the same duration each day? No. So that could be one thing to implement at a time. Is the bedtime routine too long or too short? Or how long is it taking from starting bedtime to Jack falling asleep or going into bed? What does that routine look like? How long does it take to fall asleep? Do we know why Jack may be waking in the night? If so, can we analyse that? And are they waking up at a consistent time each morning? Going back and looking at Jack's sleep diary again with those questions in mind. Are the naps appropriate? Perhaps not, because some days Jack is sleeping for 20 minutes at 9 a.m. Some days he's sleeping for 2 hours at 9 a.m. Some days he's not napping in the morning at all. He's consistently having a good 2 hours sleep in the evening, apart from day 3 when it was only an hour and a half. But that's fairly consistent. But that nap is happening from 3 till 5, 4 till 6, 4:30 till 6:30. So it is changing from day to day. That could be another tweak to make. The bedtime routine is starting anywhere from 7 p.m. till 10 p.m. And it's taking anywhere from an hour to 3 plus. So there are lots of things that we can analyze from this sleep diary. Now, you may have a look at a sleep diary and find that there's lots of things that you want to change all at once with your child. You don't need to make all of the changes all at once. You need to decide when it is right to make the change, how you're going to do it, who's going to do it, and we'll come on to that in a moment. But when is the right time to do that, and which change are you going to make first? You don't need to make all of the changes at once. That can be quite overwhelming for a sleep-deprived family. There are lots of questions to ask once you've completed a sleep diary. So thinking about a bedtime routine off the back of a sleep diary, what are the benefits of a bedtime routine? Well, they reduce anxiety because there's a predictable element to it. It's familiar. We know exactly what's going to happen and when. If someone else needs to step in and support with bedtime, or perhaps you are out for the evening and a grandparent may be helping, family friend, an aunt or an uncle, they know exactly what to do because it's the same every evening, and we can communicate that to other caregivers. Helps the child feel safe because there's security in the familiar routine. It's adult time, it's time one-on-one with a parent. Feels good to have that time with your parents, with an adult. And everybody gets to contribute, which means you're more likely to follow a bedtime routine because it's the same every time. The child feels more in control because they know what's going to happen and there's less stress. However, we know full well that lots of things can get in the way of a bedtime routine. Surprises. Surprises are lovely, aren't they? Until they impact on your child's sleep. So surprise, we're going out to dinner. Surprise, grandparents have turned up just at 6 p.m. Wake your child up when we start to wind down. At the time of year, the clock's changing, the evening's getting longer or shorter, can get in the way of a bedtime routine. Going on holiday, bedtime routines can often go out of the window on holiday. People certainly get in the way, don't they? Just people in general. Illness. If your child is anything like mine, they may fall asleep very early when they're ill. This then changes their circadian rhythm, affects their melatonin production. Traumatic events affect your sleep. Differing parenting styles. If you and your partner parent differently, if you're in a blended household, you may find that there's different parenting styles. And life absolutely gets in the way as well. So things that might be included in a bedtime routine is going to bed at the same time every night. You may then have calming activities before bed. This may be a bath for some children. For some children, a bath is not a relaxing, calming activity. For some children that absolutely love water, that's a very exciting sensory seeking activity. For some children, it's a nice calming activity. Does your child have a small meal or a snack or their dinner in the lead up to bed to eliminate hunger before they go to sleep? So hunger can't get in the way of a bedtime routine. Brushing your teeth is often part of a bedtime routine. Saying good night in the same way. Part of a bedtime routine can often be having a small script that you use just before bed. It may be, good night, see you in the morning. Something as simple as that. Good night, see you in the morning. But if you say good night in the same way every night, your child knows that the expectation is that it's bedtime because they're hearing the same thing at the same time every night. And bedtime stories are a great part of a bedtime routine. They help focus your brain and start to switch off. And when we think about developing a bedtime routine, who, what, where, what, when, why, who, all the questions. Who is going to do bedtime routines? Does one parent do bath and one parent do story in pajamas? Is it one parent on weekdays, one parent on weekends? Is it alternate days, Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesday, Thursdays? But planning who is going to do bedtime. When? What time does your child need? to start winding down? Who does what at bedtime and what time do these things happen? Once we know, well, once everyone knows who is going to do what, when, and where, that includes people like babysitters, grandparents, uh, parents who may not live in the house. We think about the when. When is my child going to go to sleep? Before we start to move your child's bedtime, we would recommend putting a bedtime routine in place first. If your child is falling asleep at roughly 11 o'clock every night, then we work backwards from 11. We work backwards from 11, get a routine in place before we start moving it backwards. So the routine comes first before the time shift. Your child then needs a regular sleep pattern. They must go to bed and get up at the same time every day. Once they have that solid block of sleep, be it 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, whenever your child is falling asleep, we facilitate it to be consistent, and we facilitate the same time every morning that your child wakes up. We then have a block of sleep that we can slowly push backwards to a more appropriate time. But it must be the same time in the evening, the same time in the morning, every day. That includes school holidays, it includes family holidays away, it includes bonfire night and Christmas Day. If you're going to tackle sleep and you've got a holiday coming up, you might want to wait until afterwards. But if you're going for it, that does include holidays and special occasions. When we think about the where, well, where are the activities going to happen? Do the calming activities start downstairs? Do we have one calming activity downstairs and then one calming activity upstairs to help the transition from downstairs and playing and being about to upstairs and winding down? It helps to think about the associations that you're building as well. So once your night clothes are on, you stay upstairs. So when we have our nighttime clothes on, whatever your child sleeps in, once they are dressed for bed, they stay upstairs. We don't come downstairs in the sleep clothes because that's not where we sleep. So we think about where this happens. And then we think about the what. What activities are calming? Are we giving appropriate transitions that these activities are ending? Are we using sand timers? Are we using visual timers that a calming activity is going to end? Because without appropriate transitions, that calming activity does not become calming. We also recommend no screen time 1 hour before bed and plan in something to eat within that hour before bed to eliminate hunger. Thinking about developing a good routine. A routine is only a routine if it happens at the same time every day, including those holidays, special occasions, and the weekend as well. There are a lot of different things that we can talk about and implement in a bedtime routine. So we've mentioned baths. If a bath is a quiet, relaxing, calming activity for your child, definitely implement a bath every night. If your child is very excited by water play and very stimulated by that, perhaps do it at a different time of day. Other calming activities can be things such as threading beads, threading laminated pictures with holes punched out of it with a hole punch. Lego, something that's hand-eye coordination, colouring in, things like Play-Doh or jigsaws or crafts or hammer beads. All of those are calming activities. Stories may also be a calming activity, but they're not a replacement for a bedtime story. We don't recommend any exercise an hour before bed, as you do get some endorphins for a good hour after you've exercised that help you feel alert and awake. But we do recommend that your child gets enough exercise throughout the day, as this helps build that sleep pressure and fall asleep. Once your child has gone into their room, they should then not go back into the living room or someone else's bedroom. The expectation is once you're in your bedroom, that's where we stay to calm down, fall asleep before we come out again. Again, the no screens an hour before bedtime, that blue light that emits, even with the blue light glasses, they're very stimulating screens, and we recommend, where possible, no screens in the hour before bedtime. Keep kisses, hugs, and stories to the same length every night. This is still part of that bedtime routine. It's great to have that affection and show affection to your child, but if that goes on for 5 minutes one night, then 10 minutes the next, and then 15 the next, then 20, and then half an hour, you're seeing that bedtime routine is suddenly not a routine anymore because the timing is changing. So you schedule a time to have a cuddle in bed. You schedule how many stories you're going to do, or a length of story, or how many chapters you read before bed, to keep that adult time structured and the same each night. And use that bedtime script. It could be it's night time, go to sleep. It might just be good night, see you in the morning. Again, it's nighttime does help to reinforce when it's day, when it's night, but do what comes naturally to you, but keep it the same every night. We recommend chopping up a good bedtime routine into 15-minute blocks. So it may be 15 minutes of calming activities, whatever that's going to be, something with hand-eye coordination. It may be 15 minutes to have a bath and brush your teeth. It may be then 15 minutes of a bedtime story, a hug, and a kiss. And it may just be then 15 minutes with the light off, with a piece of music on, or having a conversation before bed. But breaking up those activities, those sections of a bedtime into 15 minutes. It's long enough to be calming, not too long to be boring, and not too short and sharp to be exciting. So we recommend a good bedtime routine to take 1 hour, ideally. Again, if you are just starting to make changes, you don't have to go for an hour straight away. You may find yourself closing this down towards an hour over time, but we are just talking about ideals today. Now, thinking about positive bedtimes, keep calm. It can be very difficult to keep calm at bedtime, especially if it's been very stressful for a number of years. Trying to keep yourself calm at bedtime and not dread bedtime yourself may take quite a lot of mental energy. Children certainly pick up on adult anxiety, and if you as a parent feel anxious about bedtime, it's highly likely that your child will pick up on that fight, flight, freeze response. And this doesn't help anyone get to bed in a positive way. Give lots of warnings that bedtime is approaching. Whether your child can tell the time or not, we give a lot of that warnings, and that can be putting the same music on. Now, for my daughter, we played the same Taylor Swift album every night in order. I became one of her biggest fans on Spotify that year that we introduced that. But we used the same album every night at the same time, which helped the association that bedtime was approaching, using that multi-sensory approach. So you may use music, you may use a sand timer, you may use pillow sprays. So you start smelling, hearing, and seeing the same things at the same time, whether it's light outside at 7 p.m. or whether it's dark. For a positive bedtime, you can't use the bedtime as a sanction or the bedroom as a sanction, because the bedroom then goes somewhere where you've misbehaved or have been sanctioned. If it's used as a punishment, your child will likely think of their bedroom as somewhere they don't want to be, or they've been sent against their will. If they've been particularly dysregulated and there's been an incident in the house and they get sent to their room, that's seen as somewhere you go when your family doesn't want to be around you, or you must be on your own to calm down. If that's the association you have, your child may start to pick up on those feelings at bedtime. and not have the most positive bedtime. So we suggest using positive language. Now, positive language is telling your child what to do instead of what not to do. If I say to you, listening to this now, don't think of a kangaroo, the first animal that comes into your head is a kangaroo. If I say, do think of a whale, everyone's thinking about a whale because I've told you what the expectation was. Brains may not always filter out a negative. Don't think of a kangaroo, I think of a kangaroo. But also, that's one animal that I shouldn't think about. What do you want me to think about? So if we're using don't run off at bedtime, the child is hearing those key words, run off, run away, rather than walk to your bedroom, sit next to me. Give those direct instructions of what you are expecting your child to do. Sit next to me, lay with me on the bed. Give those direct instructions, and that's positive language. And breathe. This is not a patronizing bullet point that says breathe, everything's fine, just go and take some breaths. What we mean by breathe is concentrate on your breathing and your child's breathing. If you take longer breaths, your child is likely to mimic those longer, deeper breaths. You may implement square breathing, where you find a square in the room and you trace the shape of the square with your eyes and breathe in along one edge and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. There are many different apps to help with breathing and meditation methods that you may want to have a look at, but we do recommend not to use screens during a positive bedtime routine. Now, thinking about a sleep-friendly bedroom, you can use calm colours in a bedroom and ideally have minimal stuff, as much as you can, minimal stuff. If your child has school stuff for the morning, have a school stuff box. So their school stuff is out of the way and they're not going to bed thinking about school first thing in the morning or as you're going to bed. They don't wake up in the night during that sleep cycle, see their school uniform, start thinking about school and interrupting their sleep. Ideally, we want the room to be as minimal as possible during sleep. So that's having calm colours. We'll come on to colours shortly. Minimal stuff and any stuff for school, boxed and out of sight while your child is asleep. Encourage your child to stack the clothes in order that they will be put on. So if your child is sorting their own bedtime clothes or their clothes for the morning, stack them in the order that they will be put on. This helps with a sleep-friendly bedroom. Don't have the uniform in the room if your child dislikes or is anxious about school. If having it in a school stuff box doesn't work, keep the box somewhere else. Ideally, perhaps don't have a TV in a child's room or maybe somewhere else. As just seeing a TV, it may distract you from your sleep. And remember that the bedroom is a place to relax and not a punishment. So things to think about in your child's bedroom. Think about your child's sensory needs. Does your child have any sensory issues that are not being met by their bedroom? Is the bedding too scratchy? Is it too light? Do you need a blackout blind? You can get ones with suction cups that you can stick onto a window if you don't want to drill in and install blinds or curtains. The temperature. The temperature of your child's bedroom should be between 16 and 18 degrees and consistent. This is the ideal temperature for you to fall asleep to. Does your child kick off their bedding in the night? Is your child one of those thrashers that just kicks stuff everywhere and then wakes up cold and interrupts their sleep? If so, would a sleeping bag be better for your child? It might seem a bit odd to use a sleeping bag in a bed, but for some children it works. It may even contribute to that sensory need, that kind of almost, I suppose it's more light pressure than deep pressure, but sleeping bags can contribute. Likewise, do you have a weighted blanket or certain fabrics to use? Are the noise level right? Are you using white noise, pink noise, brown noise, one of those? Does your child listen to music as they fall asleep? Similarly with lights, the darker a room is, the better the production of melatonin. But if your child is afraid of the dark, that's going to hinder them even more. So do use a night light. But if you have music on or a light on, don't get ones with a timer that stop after half an hour. The reason for this is during your sleep cycles, if you wake up at 3 in the morning, natural part of your sleep cycle, and the music and the lights that you fell asleep to aren't there anymore, you've woken up somewhere different. And if you wake up somewhere different to where you fell asleep, this confuses you and you wake up and want to know where you are and what's going on. If everything is the same all night, so Taylor Swift is playing all night and the night light is on all night, when you do have those little micro wakes in the night, you're not wondering where I am, why is everything different? We just go straight back to sleep. Think about comfort. What is comfortable to you might not be comfortable to others. So try different textures, fleeces, cottons, blankets, duvets, different mattresses, pillows, different clothing. You might need to play around with different combinations until you find what is right for your child and their sensory needs and their own preferences. The difference between day and night. We've spoken about how we show the difference between daytime and nighttime. But view the room through your child's eyes. What looks okay at day can turn quite scary at night. Is there a certain shadow that looks a bit like a spider? Do we need to move the lamp so it doesn't make that shadow? Does the doll that they love playing with in the daytime look a little bit scary at night time, the way the light reflects on it? Make sure that the bedroom is a safe place for your child. They feel safe. And make sure that your child's bedroom is not overstimulating. Now, for some of you, your child's bedroom might look like this. Even if you tidied it for them 2 minutes ago, it might look exactly like this. And if you ask your child where their blue jumper is with the purple sunflower on it, they know exactly where it is. So has your child got, a floor robe? Has your teenager put their clothes everywhere? If your child's room does look like this, it's not going to be the most sleep-friendly bedroom. And this can be overstimulating if you're trying to fall asleep and you can see musical instruments, a desk with your colouring in, computer from 1994, various things and toys all over the floor. You're going to be more stimulated and find it more difficult to fall asleep. So if your child's bedroom does look like this, one of the questions to ask is who is responsible for tidying and cleaning the room? Who is responsible now and who should be responsible? How does their bedroom compare with the rest of the house? And do we have different expectations for your child's bedroom compared to the rest of the house? Is there continuity in our expectations? And what would help your child keep their room tidy? If we go, it's time to go and clean your room. That's a really big question, really big demand. Go and clean and tidy your room. Well, where do you start? Is it pick up your dirty clothes and put them in the laundry basket? Do you need to ask, put your soft toys in the soft toy basket? Therefore, does your child need a laundry basket and or a soft toy basket in their room to help keep it clear and tidy, ready for bed? Does your child need a picture of where to put things or what a tidy bedroom looks like for reference? Does your child need additional storage or labelled storage so they know where things go? Do they need scheduled time with an adult to clean it together? Is it both of your responsibilities for the time being? There's lots of questions to ask. But thinking about the impact that rooms like this have on children's sleep, it does affect your quality of sleep. Now, colours in a bedroom also make a difference. While it's true there are no, neurodiverse friendly colours, different combinations of colours in a bedroom can help produce more sleep. So this row on the top, quite pastely, neutrally, blues and greens, they're quite easy on the eye altogether. On the second row, we have quite a lot of bright colours, quite clashing, quite jarring colours, and they're not so easy on the eye. If your child is neurodiverse and a bit of a sensory seeker, having lots of those bright colours might be great for their sensory needs, but not so good for their quality of sleep. So colours do make a difference, but this doesn't mean that you have to depersonalise your child's bedroom. We're going to have a look at two examples now of a child that really likes football. Here we have a child on the left. They really like football. So their bed is bright red. They've got bright red everywhere on the curtains. They've got stripes and dots on the walls. It's quite hard to differentiate anything from another. And it does really grab your eye, all of the deep red there. When we have a look at the bedroom on the right, we can also tell that this child very much likes football. We can tell because of the football lampshades on the desk and on the ceiling, the bedding, the mural on one wall. But it's it's a lower arousal bedroom. And if I were to be completely nitpicky, I might say remove the TV from the bedroom or cover it at bedtime. But ultimately, the bedroom on the right feels a lot calmer just to look at. It's easier on the eyes. You can still see that personality and that hobby and that interest of that child. It's not cluttered while still being expressive. There's a picture on the headboard. So when your child falls asleep, they're not looking at a picture of something they're particularly excited by, especially if your child does have an intense interest or a hyperfixation. Staring at things that they're very interested in right before bed might not be a calming activity. So having it to the side or behind instead of in front can help support sleep. So you absolutely can have your child's personality, what they like, what they dislike in a bedroom, but using that calmer palette as well. Now that is pretty much it from me. Just to summarize, today we've understood the importance of sleep and the impact that sleep deprivation has on parents, children, and siblings. We've had a look at how send affects sleep and sleep can affect send. We've learned how to keep a sleep diary and how to interpret the results and when to make those changes at a time that works for you. And we've discussed bedtime routines and sleep-friendly bedrooms. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, could I please ask you to fill in a short survey via the link on screen or by scanning the QR code? Your feedback is really valuable to us. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.